And welcome back to my channel. Thank you all for your comments. I will hope to do a comments video at some point, but it's going to take a bit of time because I've got a lot of other articles to get through first. In the meantime, I'll just try and acknowledge them in a comments box and reply where I can, but bear with me, it might take a little bit of time, just got loads of stuff to do and I can't always get to comments straight away, but I will always get to them eventually, rest assured. I just want to say briefly, just in response to a couple of your comments, not a full response, but just a brief response. First of all, one of you said in relation to my other video that because something along the lines of that some people possibly might question my autism based upon how intelligently and articulately I talk on my channel in terms of like how I present stuff and so on. I'm aware that yes, some ignorant people who don't know much about autism might do that. Based upon how I appear, I have, as I've talked about in other videos, I have a non-verbal learning disability profile, and I have that pretty severely. And I have done a lot of videos on this before, and I do hope to come back to this in other videos as well, because non-verbal learning disability really does sum up my profile to the letter, in that by definition that entails having a very, very high verbal IQ. Not necessarily an extremely high verbal IQ. The main thing actually is the discrepancy, I should say. To be more accurate and precise, it's the discrepancy between having a relatively high verbal to a lower non-verbal, and obviously the extent of that discrepancy varies depending on the degree of MVLD. In my case, that is very, very pronounced. So my verbal being really, really high obviously means that's what you see when I speak. I sound, in inverted commas, normal. I sound eloquent, I sound articulate, I can talk fluently and confidently, I can string long words together. That's because I have NVLD, that's part of the profile. What you don't see, because it's the hidden stuff, like you see how I present, you see my verbal being the strength, that's what you see on this channel. The non-verbal is what you don't see here, and it's the non-verbal that is my disability, and that really affects my life. You know, all that non-verbal stuff, the emotional stuff, the social stuff, the interactive stuff, the adulting stuff, the executive stuff, the organisation stuff, all of that is my disability. And actually also the very fact I can talk so well can also be a disability, because people do not understand how impacted I am, basically. So NVLD is what my profile is, NVLD combined with Asperger's, essentially. But I have done other videos where I talk about that, so I won't go into that now, but all I'm saying is that it's part of NVLD. Part of NVLD, that I'm going to sound intelligent, I'm going to sound well-read, I'm going to sound verbal. That is my profile. It's a type of profile that isn't really very well understood. And it's a type of autism, essentially, that isn't really very well understood. But we must get away from this idea that autism always means someone who can't talk, or is slow to talk, or doesn't come across as very articulate. Autism can mean that, but it doesn't have to, and it depends what profile you have. Okay, I'm not going to go into that too much now, because I have another article that I want to talk to you about, which is called, it was a very good article, and it's about social care, and it's called Rewriting Social Care, Words That Make Me Go, Strengths-Based, and it's written by Bryony Shannon. And this is very relevant to what's going on in my life at the moment, because as I've talked about in my other videos, I've had an appalling experience with social services recently. By the way, I have now got an independent advocate who's being really helpful. I had my first appointment with the independent advocate earlier this week. She's been really helpful, and so far she's she comes across as like very positive and like, we'll sort this, we'll resolve this. So I'm feeling confident that she means business, and I'm pretty confident I've got a good one. She gave me good vibes. I feel she's a good match for me. So fingers crossed that this will yield some results going forward. in my ongoing fight to get what I need from social services, because I feel I've completely been I haven't been represented fairly. There's because of disability illiteracy among the social worker. Because of disability illiteracy, the social worker I had was just not disability literate at all. So that's a problem. So yeah, so anyway, this article, Rewriting Social Care, really very good. It's actually written by a social worker called Bryony Shannon. Words that make me go, So this is a critical look at the strengths-based model. The strengths-based model in social services, not just in social services, the strengths-based model is actually being used in many different organisations, including the education system. And it sounds all positive, strengths-based, but actually it's often being used to justify cuts. So there is an ulterior motive going on here. So first of all, she looks at, she says she's not against the strengths-based approach as such. She says in theory, the strengths-based approach could be used for positive gain. For example, there are key elements of strengths-based practice that she supports. For example, in theory, the strengths-based approach is against a one-size-fits-all solution on doing to and fixing. It also, in theory, sees people as the experts in their lives. In theory, the strengths-based approach allows for flexibility in how social workers go about their business. But not much has actually changed behind the scenes. In other words, the strengths-based approach is mere window dressing. It's changing the words to sound all positive to hide a glaring hole underneath, because the system itself is in absolute disarray. It is falling apart, cuts are being made. The strengths-based approach is just glossy wallpaper, is what she's arguing. And in my experience, it is exactly that. So she looks at some of the words that are used, the buzzwords, if you like, that are used in social work practice. Number one being independence. So this is taken from the Care Act guidance, strengths-based approaches, Social Care Institute for Excellence. As expressed in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities, in Article 19 of the Convention. So independence is a big part of the United Nations Convention on Rights of People with Disabilities. However, the Care Act focuses more on well-being and, quote, the outcomes that truly matter to people. By not explicitly defining independence, the term is interpreted as not relying on other people. Self-sufficiency, in other words, the dictionary definition of independence. This is far removed from the Article 19 definition of independent living and focus on equal choices, inclusion and participation. And crucially, as Bryony Shannon argues, relying on care and support from other people doesn't prevent independence, it allows it. And she also argues for the importance of connection and inclusion, continuity, stability, safety, and a place to call home, interdependence. And I thought that was a very good critique, because one of the arguments against my request to be able to use direct payments on a professional cleaner is this whole propaganda and indoctrination about, which no other section of society gets. It's absolutely sick, oh, if you're disabled, you get it because you're treated like a child. This whole load of crap about, oh, you need to be independent. It will take away your independence. You need to learn the skills. And I'm like thinking, I'm not a child, mate. I'm 35 years old. Go and take your propaganda and shove it up your a-hole, you know? It's like seriously sick. It's like no other section of society gets this crap about independence. And I'm an independent woman, you know? I know my mind, I know myself. It's precisely because I am independent, I know what I need to get on in life. But that doesn't matter, that doesn't count. That's not the type of independence the social worker has in mind. And yeah, it is ironic, as Bryony's saying, you know, having a professional cleaner would actually uphold my independence, because there are certain parts of my disability that I need a doer, not just a helper. It would be like saying to someone with physical disability, because you can walk down the street, you can walk up them stairs as well. We're not going to install a stair lift. It's all about independence. You can learn how to do it. Bloody offensive. I mean, I'm sure they get that crap as well. Wouldn't put it beyond them, particularly from Tories, because that's what Tories are like. Don't get me started on the Tory party. Bloody makes me angry. Probably can tell. Sick. They can shove it up their hole, you know? Shove it up. Shove it up! Just stick it, sick it, sick. Yeah, you know what I mean. It's like, yeah, it's absolutely infantilising and patronising crap. It is not the duty of social workers to propagandise. It's a bit like what Victorian ladies did back in the day when they went round the slums, slumming it and telling people how to live their lives. It's sick. It's all propaganda. It's because at the end of the day, they don't want to spend money. That's what it comes down to. It's an Emperor's New Clothes situation, but when I bring it to their attention, then I'm basically back-chatting, aren't I? But I can't help that, I'm autistic, I speak my mind. It's part of my disability, it does get me in trouble. But at the end of the day, I don't hide behind, you know, I do speak my mind, can't help it. But anyway, and I think that's, yeah, anyway, blah blah blah, I'm going off on one, as you could tell. So the next one that, Bryony Shannon, the next point that Bryony Shannon brings up is resilience. The strengths-based practice emphasises people's self-determination. Clients as resourceful in the face of adversity. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, whatever. I mean, seriously. Self-determination, resourceful in the face of adversity. I mean, when I was asking for a professional cleaner, because I know that this will help me, that is me being resourceful in the face of adversity. I'm actually trying to preempt a difficulty further down the line, because I know, as an adult, what my disability entails. And yet I was given the talk by the social worker about independence. Did not go down well with me. No. You can probably tell I'm angry about it, just because... you know what I mean? When I get angry, oh! Yeah, seriously, it's just the irony of it. Anyway, yeah, he hadn't read that. Anyway, he hadn't read that clearly. That's what resilience is. But anyway, this is from the practice handbook, from the social worker practice handbook, February 2019, the Department of Health and Social Care, strengths-based social work. So it's meant to be all about maximising activity in terms of people's personal resources, support networks and community resources. Helps create resilient individuals, people who can manage independently. No brownie points there, by the way, if you can detect a cuts agenda. You don't have to look too deeply. People who can manage independently. Cue cuts. The idea is that people rely on their community. But what about people who don't have friends? And autism, by definition, often means you struggle to reach out to your community. It's like, but that apparently doesn't count here. But yeah, and this social worker says this is the wrong approach. You know, we actually need ecosystems of support. We need ecosystems of support. You know, it shouldn't be about making individuals manage, cope and survive. Someone can cope, by the way, in really awful circumstances, but just because someone is coping and appearing to survive, that doesn't mean that's a good thing, because they might be under extreme stress, and that isn't good enough. Like, people shouldn't be made to cope and survive. People should be given the support they need. You know? And there's only so much someone can bounce back anyway. Eventually it breaks someone. And why should people be expected to be resilient? Why can't they just be given the support they need? But yeah. The next point that she talked about under the strengths-based approach is empowerment. We empower our customers to take care of themselves. Our customers. Where does the power lie exactly? Where does the power lie? That's again suggesting almost like a social worker is like basically an agent of the state, trying to propagandize some Tory ideology and brainwash people about how to be independent, because we don't want to spend money on you, we want to cut. Yeah, and as she said, you know, this suggests that people don't already have power, and it's the social workers' actions that give power. And also, for us to have genuine power, we must address the policies that remove choice and control. Devolve decision-making. You know, that's true democracy, isn't it? Devolve decision-making. It's not a social worker's job to try and dictate. Instead, they should be listening to the person and those who support them as to what is best, as to what they most need to live a normal, decent life for them. And they shouldn't be like cutting services. They should be listening to the person. It's absolutely disgusting, but yeah. Okay, moving over to video number 2 now to carry on looking at this critique of a strengths-based model. So moving over to video number 2.